the fearless, curious soul. Goldilocks Productions presents The Deep Reading, connecting you to your soul show.
Hello, this is Suzanne Wyman, the Deep Psychic. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Please think about the commentary that you relate to. I want you to feel included and know that if this conversation resonates to who and what you are, then you are part of something greater than yourself. The universe is connecting to you, answering your questions. Well, here we are. It's Thursday afternoon at 12 noon in Dana Point, California, and it is a gray day. If you're not somebody who's used to a coastal zone, that means that it is gray in the morning, and they promise us it will burn off, but it doesn't look like it's burning off at the moment. They call it an inversion layer, and what it really means is you really can't tell what time it is, if it's day or night or anything. It just is completely gray. It's absolutely beautiful. Locals call it sunburn weather because you don't realize how much sun you're getting. So today I have a really great guest. Her name is Peggy Kelly, and let's see if she's there and if we can bring her on. And
I'm here.
Great. Hey, Peggy, how are you?
I'm good. So glad to be here for you and with you.
Thank you. You and I talked for just a few minutes yesterday, and it was a good conversation, and you are, as always, so helpful and accommodating. And the story that I wanted to start out with was the church that you were telling me about that has ended up basically in a position of becoming an unknown item, and it holds the history, which is really important to the New Age, the New Thought movement, and yet this church is sort of moving into an obscure position. So we're going to talk about that part first, and then we're going to talk about ideas about weddings for this year. Is that good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. So start the story. Start the story.
So, Founders Church is located on 6th and Berendo in what is now known as Koreatown, and it was built 60 years ago. This is its 60th anniversary. So, 60 years ago, that community was totally different than it is today. And it's a historic building because it was built by a black architect, renowned black architect, and I don't know his name, although I'm going to look it up here really fast so that I get this right. And because it's important. It really is important about it. And the architecture, it was a unique design of an ellipse. So it's not circular, although it appears to be that way. It's actually oval. And it seats over 300, close to 400 guests, which, that's a good-sized community. On that.
Right.
And what's unique about it, the reason it's called Founders Church is that was the first church of Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of religious science. There's a lot of history.
Peggy, which is now called Center for Spiritual Understanding. They changed their name.
Is it Spiritual Understanding or Center for Spiritual Living?
Ah, you are right. Spiritual Living. Very good.
Right.
Okay. So go on. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely. So, the architect, his name was Robert R. Williams, and and he was a very renowned black architect, back in the day, and brought this unique style and design. Now, it's Paul R. Williams.
Okay. Okay.
And there's a whole article on the founder's website about the history, and there's actually an article called Lost LA about it, because here again, when it was built and it originated, it was that whole community was totally different in its demographic, and it was predominantly Afro-American in that area. It was off of downtown. It was by the Adams area and such, because it's close to Vermont, 6th and Vermont on it. So, and when I met it the first time was back in the mid '80s, because I was the general manager for the Hamburger Hamlet that was on Wilshire and Berendo, and so after church service, this sea of just amazing, elegantly coiffed ladies in hats and gloves would walk down for brunch. So I always knew that it was there, and it was packed. It was packed. And then recently, as they were coming into their 60th anniversary, they wanted to do a celebration, and so I was very excited. I got the opportunity. I was introduced to the new pastor, Arthur Chang, who's just a lovely man, and his team. And so I came to visit, and I walked into this just unbelievable facility, and there was less than 50 people there.
Right.
And my heart hurt. And right. What I, and yes, times do change and that, but religious science and the Center for Spiritual Living, this is a very active community.
Mm-hmm.
So
let me ask you a few questions here.
Okay.
So first of all, the first piece is that a lot of people don't understand some of the stuff that you've outlined, and so I'm going to outline it. So first of all, when this church was built, it was part of Lafayette Square, and a lot of people don't understand that in California, we have a divided society where the people that are of color live in one section, and the people that are white live in another section. We didn't divide the society. The major difference in this area is that the people of color decided to create their own community and their own locations. And Lafayette Square and the area surrounding Lafayette Square were the areas that were for the very prosperous, professional, wealthy families of color. So today, that area that he designed architecture in is an area which has a lot of poverty, a lot of crime, and it has a lot of problems that are associated with a dense population in a competitive environment. So I thought it was kind of interesting that he became Paul Revere Williams, which I think is just a really beautiful name, became known for doing homes for people like Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz and a lot of people at that time that were well known. But the thing I always find interesting is that here we are today, and we really need something historical to bring us as a group of metaphysicians, as a group of New Age, New Thought movement people. We need something to move back to a piece of our origins. And this piece of architecture that you talk about is something I don't even know anything about. And I was raised in science of mind with the Richelieu family in Redondo Beach, California. So I find it kind of surprising. And so my question to you is how come this, and we'll go back to your story, but how is it that this has basically become unknown?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what happened over those 30-some-odd years from when I first met it to today. I know that there was a change in leadership. And here's what is important to know. There is a whole hall there of history, of the archives from Ernest Holmes, and the whole legacy of religious science is housed there. And wow. I don't think people know that. They don't know that. The original pastor, not just Dr. Holmes, but the very first, and I'm looking for his name, was let me believe. Sorry.
It's okay. So,
but I think what happened, there's only been, excluding Dr. Holmes, 2 pastors there. Wow. The original person, and which, had everything alive and vibrant, but also the area was live and vibrant in a different way then right. too, because by that church was also the ambassador. It was also down right. from the Wiltern. Right. There are 2 other huge Presbyterian churches that kind of are like sentries. There's one on Berendo and Wilshire, and there's another one that I think is up on around 3rd, and not quite Vermont, but the next street over, and I can't remember the name of it right now. And then when the actual demographic changed from the affluent Black community to the Korean community, there was a huge shift there too. So, and because the area is so dense, parking was a huge issue and continues to be a huge issue there. Okay. Yes, you've got 400 seats, but where do you park them?
Okay. So, parking in that part of the city is expensive. It's not available, and it's really not accommodating. And we live in a car culture. Other parts of the world right. don't have a car culture. So, and there's no forgiveness there in that process. So, nope. I think the current rate for paying for a parking spot in that area, I think is $8 every 15 minutes. Does that sound right?
I'm not sure, but it's pretty hefty. Now, what they did do is they made a parking agreement with one of the parking structures for mm-hmm. Sunday. Okay. But here's this amazing space, because it's a 2-tier theater. It has the balcony. It's a full production facility that really looks like the Plantations in many respects as far as seating capacity. As such, it has a separate side chapel. It has where the archives are is on the lower floor. There's area for signing if you wanted to do events. This is a great event space as well as community space.
So can I read to you a little article that they have online, and it says Ernest Holmes established the Founders Church of Religious Science in 1932, and by the time he died in 1960, his church had grown to 100,000 members across the country. The Los Angeles congregation needed a new sanctuary, so its new members hired architect Paul Revere Williams. And it is listed in the Los Angeles Conservancy locations. But the thing that I find so unique is that, I was raised in this movement, and I thought that I knew a lot about it, and I thought that I was aware of it. And this seems to be sort of a strange thing, because very easily this location could slip into obscurity. It could also slip into a place of, just not being able to be used. But you have, and I guess the other part that we need to be more direct about is that, Koreatown is not a place that is, at nighttime, that is safe in any way. It just is not a safe place to take a walk in, okay? I personally would never take a walk in that area, and I consider myself pretty safe and pretty secure in most neighborhoods of any part of Los Angeles. So how has that happened? I mean, I'm not talking about the, like you have knowledge of it, but in your opinion, because it's just an opinion, how has it happened that such an important structure to the New Age, the New Thought movement, well designed, well built, an incredible venue, beautiful in every way, how has that slipped into an obscure place that nobody today, basically, I haven't heard anybody talk about it. How has that happened?
Well, I think sometimes we build our communities, and when this community was built, it was built by the pastor prior to Reverend Chang, Dr. Chang, and as that layer of community passed on, it wasn't replaced. So as each layer of community passes forward, if it's not replaced, if it's not renewed, if younger generations are not engaged, whether it's through programming or outreach or mission or education or whatever it is, you eventually will go extinct on it. It's just a numbers game after a while on that. And what was interesting is when I went there, the first Sunday that I was there, the average age in that room was over 60. Mm-hmm. And so it was, that the older congregants, and that there was if there was youth, they have a small youth group that I saw that the kids were brought out later. There was like 3 of that. So it's I don't know exactly all of the dynamics of it, but what I saw was that that the generations before had literally gone on, and that this was part of a very close-knit, everybody knew everybody community. They're very warm, they're very welcoming, but it was incredibly obvious that I was new. It was incredibly obvious that I was different, because it's predominantly, I would say 80% Afro-American, and there was probably 2 or 3 white people in the group, me being one of them. So, and it's not about color and race. It really isn't. It's just that was the original congregation was the affluent African American.
Right. So it's an interesting, the architect who designed that building. It's a very unusual looking building. He designed the building which sits in the center of LAX airport. He designed architecturally so many things in Los Angeles that are kind of like our, if you've lived here your whole life, you don't even think anything of it. I mean, they're just part of the, sort of the structure. But I think, and I'm listening to you talk about this, and I can feel the emotions, as you talk about this. Here's this incredible structure. It's a large structure, and basically it's ended up in a situation of obscurity because of its location. And so, which is...
I don't know if it was totally location. It can also location doesn't help it, but I think with some creativity and some willingness to step out of maybe some comfort zones, and some outreach. Here's the one thing that I'm thrilled to say that has happened there is they have they've added a Hispanic ministry to it. Mm-hmm. And that is the younger families and so they have their services done in Spanish. The same way that they do Mass down at the cathedral in Spanish at a certain hour, it's the same thing there, which I thought, that was forward thinking. Being so close to USC and to other things that are there, and with the influx of younger people moving into Koreatown just based on economics, I think that there could be an outreach campaign put together just for awareness. And the other part, because of the size of the seating capacity and also the theatrical potential, it's a huge area for conferences and concerts and plays and just all kinds of community and arts opportunities. Right.
So,
and even with social distancing, if you took 400 seats and even with social distancing, you'd still have an audience of 100 in there if you did it at 25%, and be good with that.
Okay.
So there's a real opportunity for the facility to be used for much more than just services and religious gatherings. It could really be a community centerpiece.
Did you ever see the series 6 Feet Under?
I know of it, but I haven't watched it.
So one of the great points of it is that they took this incredibly beautiful house, which is in the adjacent area to that, and they filmed the Fisher family's home funeral services. And so many people don't really understand that in the 40s and 50s, that was where you wanted to live if you were living in Los Angeles and you had a home. It is an incredible example of beautiful architecture, and this is an amazing example of architecture, too, at the same time. But I just think, for some reason or another, that this location has sort of fallen through the cracks. And we're going to take a time on this. We've done our plug for this. We're going to post this all over the place, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to see if we can't create a shift. But I want to take you now on to some of your ideas about weddings in the middle of this pandemic, and what are some great solutions for people that want to get married in 2020. but need a different set of insights into this situation. So you and I kind of had a short conversation about that, and that's the other thing that I want to talk to you about, because you are, if you'd like to introduce yourself, you are somebody who is in the wedding planning business.
Well, I'm an event and wedding designer and producer. Okay. My company is Timeless Celebrations, and we design and produce predominantly nonprofit and social celebratory events. So the wedding arena is a huge part of not just my business but my life. I believe in love. I've always have, and with that, this year has brought with it unprecedented, happenings, but also some unprecedented opportunities. And in the beginning, I was in Las Vegas in March at the special event speaking, and on March 12th, and on March 16th is when everything shut down. But when we were there were 8,000 event professionals there, and we were watching our industry just domino. In that, between the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, it was like a dominoes game, and we were losing in a really big way on that. Right. We came back to, the world closing down on March 16th, and everyone not knowing what to do, where to go, what was next. There, just due to timing, March it starts the ramp up for the spring bridal run, as we call it, and it's very popular. The first bloom of roses are in April 15th usually, and so there was so much anticipation because 2020 was coined, a magical year. And it still is. It's just a little different looking than we anticipated on it. And unfortunately, weddings needed to be changed, and there were two choices. You could cancel or you could postpone. Now, both meant change. And when you have been planning your wedding for anywhere from 9 months to a year or longer, neither one of those words are the ones you want to hear. But unfortunately, that was the conversation that all of the industry had to have. And couples had to have a choice. They had a choice. Some canceled completely because they just couldn't wrap. It was too big. It was too big. We need to step back. We need to reevaluate, and then we'll make a decision. Many said we're going to postpone, and if they were in March or April, they were thinking, how about June? How about August? How's the fall looking? And as we have continued to experience every day, every week, that the changes and the postponements have continued, and they've continued into 2021 and into 2022.
Okay.
What comes with that?
Let me ask you a question, and that is that if we, I don't want to go down the path of people are kind of contemplating some negative things. Let's just say that there's a young couple, and they have their hearts set on getting married in 2020. So the first thing that came to my mind, the very first thing that came to my mind, was that it would be a small celebration. I think the first time that they placed limits, it was like 50 people, but if you included the wait staff, then there really was no way to really even have a wedding with 50 of your closest friends. So the first thing I thought of is I thought, well, why not take and have a situation where everything is set up and everything is laid out, and you have 50 of your closest friends, and then an outdoor location would work because California is beautiful all the way through October. And then afterwards, after everybody leaves, then the other people who come and take care of the event come and clear everything away, which is totally a doable situation. The problem is that people are thinking, well, I can't do this because if I do this, I'm creating further problems. So let's talk about what the real options are for people that say, I got to get married in 2020, and this is how it happens, and part of my guests are going to be on Zoom, and they're going to get a piece of wedding cake in the mail a day later. I'm coming up with some interesting solutions here. Let's talk about those people that want to get married no matter what's going on, and they want to get on with, the next part of married life. Let's talk about that.
Well, currently, elopement, which is anywhere from 2 to 4 people, is the most petite of the options. There is what is called a micro wedding, and micro is 10. So you've got your bride, your groom, your officiant, and 7 of your, say 6 of your closest family members. And then you can layer in different services. A lot of those are done in a 2 to 4 hour block versus the whole day. And there are my company and many other companies are doing what are called micro weddings. There's also mini. Mini tends to be 50 and under, depending if that is pending legal, what the current protocol is, because, and this is what we've learned in so many ways. Yes, you have a family that has been together, but when you start adding in others is when risk increases. You also have your vendors, which is your officiant, your photographer. If you're doing videography, to go to Zoom on that. Your venue. You have to have all of these protocols in place, and the industry has worked incredibly hard. There's been a huge event task force working hand in hand with the health department and all health departments, because Long Beach has a separate one, Pasadena has a separate one, and LA County has a separate one, and Orange County has a separate one. So, and they all have different rules. They're run by different health departments. So most of it's universal, but some of them are slightly different, and you have to adhere to the rules and protocol of each area depending on where you are. Myself being up in Pasadena, we have our own health department here, and the rules are the rules. And same way with you. You're down south, so you have another set of rules down there. And what we learned is really about reach in a different way, that how one person can affect so many others on it.
Okay.
And we learned this in a lot of ways.
Okay, so let's talk about a wedding that you feel good about offering, a micro wedding.
I'm sorry, say that again. Say that one more time. I didn't hear you.
Talk to me about a wedding you feel good about offering a couple. A couple comes to you and says, we realize we can't have what we originally wanted. We want to get married. And now tell me, what is the wedding you would offer them under the current conditions? Health departments, bureaucracy have become part of the difficulty because obviously there should be a policy which is consistent. And this is always a problem when we go through a change. The lack of consistency and the lack of standard protocols. So this is an ongoing problem repeated throughout history since the time of the Romans. But talk to me about what you would offer a couple that wants to get married in 2020. 2020 is a 4-year, and a 4-year is about structure. It's about foundation.
About,
right? And so when we talk about that, we're talking about somebody who's choosing to begin a life in a brand new foundation. And realistically, what is it you would offer somebody or suggest? Because nothing bad about this year for marriage, nothing.
No, actually, it's quite good. A 4-year, you talk about structure and foundation. It's building your life and your marriage on a firm foundation. I think so. It's actually a very good year. And 2 and 2 is 22, which is a master number of greatness. So from a number standpoint, it's a very auspicious year. What we would offer is from a protocol standpoint is whether it's a venue or let me give you an example. Alan Katz owns a company called Great Officiants. He has a chapel at his business that is outside. Outside is a big piece for many of these right now. Mm-hmm. He has it set up so that when you arrive, everything has been sterilized. Everyone is with masks. Everything there's hand sanitizer upon arrival. There's a beautiful arch that is there. He has handled the wedding license. That was a big issue for a long time, that we couldn't get wedding license. People could not get married here for a while because all of that was closed. But that's back and open for right now. Mm-hmm. So he would handle all of that with you. And here again, social distancing. He's wearing a mask. You are also. If you don't have one, he will provide one. On that, as far as for the service, he's efficient so that he can actually officiate. You can do it, as a couple. You can do it and bring, a few few family members. It tends to be under 10 there, mm-hmm. And they do the service, and you can, depending. Many people are doing like cake and punch. You remember way back when in the 50s? You weren't there, but I was. Where after the ceremony you went down, possibly out in the church patio, and there was cake and champagne or cake and punch. Mm-hmm. Many of that is making a resurgence in that, mm-hmm. and so it's very stylized. And what they will do is we'll do a small wedding cake for cake cutting, and then individual cakes or cupcakes or petit-fours or whatever for any guests that are attending. Mm-hmm. So everything has actually gotten more detailed. It's very sweet. You still have the beautiful bouquet. You still have the boutonnieres. You still have your dress. I mean, many of the elements are still there. Mm-hmm. And I think what's happened is people have become more conscious of the depth and breadth of the ceremony. It has now taken center stage versus backstage. In many cases before, the ceremony was beautiful and it was nice, but the focus was on the party after.
Okay. So let's talk about that.
Now it's flipping.
Let's talk about that. So my husband paints weddings. And,
right.
So the options that somebody would have, and what you just described is just really beautiful. You go to an outdoor location. The officiant has set everything up. Everything meets the safety requirements. And there you are with a small group of people. Now, theoretically, you could put it on Zoom.
Right. You can stream it. You can stream it, absolutely.
Right. And then afterwards, people have the gathering where it really was a very modest sort of setting for people to do mm-hmm. that in the 50s and the 60s, to have a very modest wedding. It was usually done at somebody's church that they attended, and they had a small group of people, And you of course, anybody in the congregation could attend the wedding, but then the reception afterwards was just for the people that were part of the wedding and that were related to the bride and the groom. And it was always something extremely small. It might be a toast, it might be a speech, and that was it. And that was a very enjoyable occasion. So my thought is that, and people, you still can have that photographed, and you still have your wedding photographs, you still have your beautiful gown, but it really is bringing the focus back onto the process of coupledom, starting with starting with the ceremony and what the ceremony represents to the two people. And so that, I think it's a beautiful return to what a wedding is about. Now, I love the extravagant weddings. I love the beautiful, beautiful, elaborate weddings and events. Please don't get me wrong. But I don't think that people should be deciding to not become married because they think that they can't have what they want. They could have a wedding party a year later, 2 years later, whatever.
But do it on your first anniversary. Do it on your first anniversary. Many of the Asian communities do that, where they do the big wedding and celebration a year later.
Right. So it's quite lovely, and I think rather than people getting, caught up in some of these things that they think are prohibiting them from getting married, I want to encourage them to go back to the thing that is most important, that you're building a new family together. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have children, but you're building a new family together with this person. And so that's what the whole sacred process is centered in. And when my husband and I got married, we didn't get a painting of our wedding afterwards. And, the cake was wonderful, and the candy was great, and the meal was fabulous, and my friends were wonderful, and, my family and my husband's family, it was really quite wonderful. But then afterwards, the thing that we said, we were like, oh my gosh, where's our painting? Because that becomes, like one of the nice keepsakes from the wedding day. And, event planners such as yourself, they take the wedding painting from that day and they hang it up in the honeymoon suite. So my point is, in talking about weddings with you, because you love this, I love this, we love weddings, who doesn't love a wedding, is that the things that make it memorable and are truly special are still there for people that still want to get married. So, it's not gone. It's just very different today. So, you've presented a very good option, a very sound, solid, practical option for people if they, if they want to get married this year. So, so tell me, and I put you on the spot because we didn't prepare any of our questions here today. Tell me, as of today, what is your favorite petite elope wedding or mini wedding story? Just no names, obviously, but just tell me one of your favorite stories, because right now you're in a very interesting position. I mean, you're talking about history. You're really talking about the history of, what weddings are like in Los Angeles, California today. I mean, that's what you're telling me about.
Well, and it is historic. From a story standpoint, I think what I love most, and I have to be honest, I haven't had the pleasure of producing a petite wedding yet. We've done stylized shoots, which are different on that, and those have been fun. What I am passionate about is giving couples a place and a safe place to be and vent and share their concerns, their discomfort, their sadness, because this is a process, and we can go for the logistics, and then we can go for the emotion. And the logistics will always take care of themselves. We can figure out how to the bouquet and the ceremony and all of that. But the part that I love to focus on is the couple and the emotional piece of this, and hold them close as they go through that process of letting go of what they thought their day was going to look like, and hold them as they evolve into what the next version of that is, and then celebrate them for the journey that they've taken. Because that, I think, is where we are now for so many. Couples they don't know. At first it seemed like it was going to be, well, we're going to postpone from April, we're going to be fine in August, and everything's okay. And their mind was set on that. And here we are, in July, towards the end of July. August is next door, and they've had to postpone again. And so it is an emotional roller coaster for them that cannot be denied. And we have two choices, is that we can focus on the logistics, or we can focus on that roller coaster and that journey and take that with them. And I think more than ever, planners need to become partners with their couples, so that the journey and the roller coaster is as easy as it can be, because we're in the same spot with them. We don't know either exactly how this is going to unfold, but if we're doing it together, I think that it doesn't feel as tragic as it could feel. I think about all of the couples that didn't have a planner, and where they are right now, and what are they doing, and how are they handling this, and who is helping them through all of the health protocols and such. And that's where I get concerned, as well as if you have a planner, we've all banded together, as an industry, to make sure that everybody gets through to the best of our ability, safely. But you have to remember, not everyone has a planner, and that is where I get concerned on it, and that there's a way for them to know to reach out to all of us. It doesn't mean that we have to be booked as their planner, but if they have questions, they can call me. I would be the first one on the block to say, if you have a question and you don't know, please call. I mean, I will take the time to point you in a direction or help you or answer a question, because this is serious on what's happening.
So why don't you share your information?
So anyone can reach out to me at peggy@timelesscelebrations.com, and I am happy to help in any way. If you have questions, concerns, because it may be a simple answer that will guide you safely to what your next action is. And sometimes you just need to be heard. And I think that's the big piece that the industry is doing is it's listening, it's compassionate, it's trying to help everybody through this. We don't have all of the answers, but the answers we have, we share, and know that your special day is still your special day, and that we will do everything in our power to make it everything and more that you wanted. And what some people are finding out is that it's even more intimate. it's more detailed. It's more their story. It's brought them together in a way that they had no idea that it was going to. It's brought families together that may not have been as close as they were prior to this. So it's a historic time, yes. And it'll be a story that you're going to tell your kids and your grandkids about how you got married in the middle of a pandemic, that your love was so great that you had to do it then.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, sort of like bringing us back into focus. So this is a year of change. So we go through this change, we create a brand new foundation. There's planetary aspects that have occurred that haven't occurred in 6,500 years. There's planetary aspects that the last time they occurred was when Luther took and went to the front of the church and nailed up his 93 requests. This is a change, but it's on solid ground, and it's a solid change that needs to take place. So I keep thinking, I get up every single day and I go, oh my God, this is great. And I don't even know where that's coming from because I am not Mrs. Chipper without my coffee, okay? And every morning I'm waking up with that feeling. And at first I felt guilty. I thought, Suzanne, what is wrong with you that you are feeling good during what's going on? But every single day I get up with that feeling, unasked for, unsearched for, and I think, oh my God, this is good. I feel great. And I don't have an explanation for it. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, because this was so long overdue, because this was so necessary. Yes, it's inconvenient. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, there's tragedy. Yes. However, there's a good cause for it. It's long overdue. It's needed. So if everybody could just simply, if we could just do the things that make us safe, keep us safe, and protect others, this process will pass. World will go on. It may not be the same world that we knew prior to this process, but the world does go on. So I thought about all of these things, and the thing that you said is that if you choose love and you choose marriage during this time, it will be 1,000 times more memorable than the wedding that happened in 2019 or 2022. So that's a lovely comment. It's like the babies that are born during this, during COVID.
Right.
It's the same thing. You were born during the pandemic. So you got married during the pandemic. It is the courage to go forward, sensibly, practical, with the suggested guidelines, yes. But let's go forward. Let's go forward and say yes to love. Let's go forward and say yes to family. Let's go forward and continue on with our dreams. So, and what a very, can I say what a very generous offer it is on your part to say, you're welcome to contact me, you're welcome to ask me your questions, you're welcome to connect with me, and that you want people to feel as if they're heard, which is really very important. I want to feel heard, you want to feel heard. People that are experiencing a change, they want to feel heard. What a very generous offer to make, really. So,
and I mean it too. People say, well, they just say that. Well, I'm the type that picks up the phone. I freak everybody out because I answer, and that because this is a time of commitment, and I think that, and it is a commitment to go forward, and it's a commitment to each other. Like I say, I really feel that the ceremony is so richer for this, and it used to be a quick 5, 10, 15-minute moment, and now it's not. Now it it is celebrated and it is expanded, and it is, it has all these beautiful new elements that weren't in it before. I mean, it really has, changed and evolved into just beautiful, magnificent displays and readings and music and all of these things that you can still do.
Mhm. The sentiment.
So it's gotten I think, I'm sorry?
The sentimental flourishes that don't cost, that are not about money, but are about the heart and the expression of love between two people. So, we're down to our last few minutes here, Peggy, and we're gonna wrap it up. So, just great conversation, and thank you very much for coming and sharing your insight and your wisdom and your perspective about people being able to choose love, family, home, marriage, and going forward in this time, because that's really the message that I want to carry. It may not be what you thought it was going to be, but I assure you it will be even better because you will have made a decision to go forward. But sort of give us a concluding thought, something to reflect on afterwards here.
Reflective thought.
Reflective.
For me, it's always love only.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And remember who you are.
Okay.
We're here. There's a reason that we're here at this time. We chose to be here, and so choose love.
Choose love. I love it. That's absolutely perfect. So I really like the introduction of talking about the architectural masterpiece that Paul Revere Williams created for Center for Spiritual Living. Is that right? Did I get it right this time?
Yeah, Center for Spiritual Living.
Center for Spiritual Living. A sacred space, and then a wedding is creating sacred space between two people in order to honor their life, and by taking and setting aside some of the things that are about guests and menus and everything else, it brings the wedding, the marriage, back to the most sacred component, which is what happens between two people when they commit to one another and build a life together. So, great tie, great thought, and you truly are inspired. And thank you so much for doing this, because we really were not well prepared, and I did put you on the spot a few times, so I hope you give me a grace card on that one. But you did a great conversation. You did a great job of educating people about thinking about these things very differently, because that is our challenge. Think about it differently and continue to go forward. That's the journey today.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Yeah, think wide. Think wide.
So, and take and provide your information one more time for me, please, and then we're going to wrap it up, and you've been great.
So, Peggy Kelly, Timeless Celebrations, and it's Peggy at timelesscelebrations.com. We are here for you. We are. We want to help. We want to heal. We want to listen. And most of all, we want to celebrate.
Fabulous. Okay, and this is Suzanne Wyman, and I am the Deep Reading, Connecting You to Your Soul. I'll be here next Thursday for everybody to join us. You can always call me directly at 714-400-7384 and leave me a message, and I will call you back. And join us again next week. And I hope this message goes out and helps as many people as it can possibly help. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being part of it. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day. Goodbye.
Become a Goldilocks Productions VIP patron. Receive exclusive access to live stream special and other epic perks. Join the Goldilocks Productions VIP community today.